Hi friends, Relic here. We're going to do a quick build guide on the PicoPROM, which I put out recently. And I have kits available on Tindie and stuff. Anyway, people started buying them and I was like, I should probably tell people how to make these things. Anyway, we're going to do that. I apologize for the noise and the environment. This is my, my cruddy, can I say crappy? I can say crappy. This is my crappy shed where I make all my projects and I experiment and solder and all that kind of stuff. This will be a first for me because I've never done a soldering tutorial before, and I know they can be a little iffy because everybody likes to comment on people's soldering. Please be kind to me. I have been doing this for a long time and I do it in my way, and my way might be different than yours, but we'll see how that works out. However, I thought this project was is easy enough. It's very simple. There's no SMD. It's all very easy dip soldering through hole stuff. So I felt like, hey, might as well start somewhere, and this is probably a pretty easy place to start. All in all, I feel like if you're doing this yourself, this should only take about, depending on your experience, about 15 to 20 minutes to do, if not even less if you're really going at it. So let's get started. Oh, another thing I may have not mentioned is I've got my 3D printer running. I'm gonna have this fan going later too, so it may be a little bit noisy, so bear with me here. Now there are a few things you're gonna need before getting started. First of all, you're gonna need a soldering iron. I've got this old SparkFun one here that does pretty well. Decent enough tip on it. You can use a chisel tip for this if you'd like. It shouldn't be that difficult. Since everything is through hole. You're gonna need your soldering iron. You may need, I don't actually have it out here, but you may need either solder wick or a solder vacuum. Let me get mine real quick. Here we go. Okay, solder vacuum of some sort. You know, if you make a mistake, whatever, you need to take some stuff out. You don't need this guy. This is a new acquisition of mine, this desoldering gun. Amazing, highly recommend, but that's overkill for this project. You're gonna need some clippers of some sort. Here's some straight ones at a little bit of an angle, pretty nice. You're gonna need some tweezers. I like these ones here with a little curve. These are a little bent out, but they should be fine for this case. Actually, you may not even need tweezers. I think you might be fine without tweezers, but I like to have them anyway. You're gonna need your kit here. Yours might be packaged differently. I'm gonna run through the contents of here in just a second. And then I highly recommend having some form of holder like this one. This is the one I use here. I think you can get this from Adafruit. It's Pro's kit, SN390. It's a pretty good one. You can also just put it on the ground. I don't know. This just makes it a little bit easier, especially when you're flipping the board around a lot. So the way we're gonna do this is we are gonna make this the slim version where it's a little slicker so that it fits in the 3D printed case. In order for it to fit in this profile, you're gonna need to solder directly on the board rather than using headers. However, I like using these headers to get the Pico aligned really nicely. Oh, and that should be it, but I do have this little screwdriver here. I'm using a Torx bit, but technically the screws for the case are an M2, so I guess it'd be an Allen key of some sort. Okay, let's open this sucker up. So let's go through the contents right here. Yours might be packaged differently, but this is kind of how I'm doing it for now. So for starters, you're gonna have your PCB. Pretty straightforward. Everything should be labeled fairly simply. Pretty cool board, actually, I'd say. Then you're gonna have two little resistors here. These are 47 kilo ohms, and then you're gonna have four capacitors. These are 0.1 UF microfarads or 100 nanofarads. These are mostly used just for, you know, power coupling, decoupling or whatever. It'd probably work without these, but I like having them on. Just makes everything a little bit more stable electrically. You're gonna have your Pico. Now this is a fancy one I like that has a USB-C header because USB-C is better than micro USB, of course. However, yours may be the micro USB. It just depends on what I have in stock. I probably will go ahead and flash this with the firmware, the most up-to-date that I've got. But if not, you can flash it before or after. I'll show how to do that in a little bit, but it's pretty straightforward. And then we have this little package here just to keep all the little pins safe. And this will be two things. First, your ZIF socket, that is zero insertion force. It's 28 pin. This is for your EEPROMs. You know, the legs look good. I think we're good there. And then you'll have this guy, which is the bus transceiver. It's a 7.4, let me make sure this is right, SN74HC245N. Regardless, it's the bus transceiver, which allows the Pico to talk with EEPROM over here when it's reading data. You know what I forgot to mention before is you need solder. That's kind of important, you know, solder. I also flux if you want to make your solder look good. Otherwise, you're gonna, you know, be a little cruddy. So let's go ahead and get this board set up. You want to start with your SMD and your small components first, where possible. Let's start with the Pico first. So I'm gonna get this kind of level because we're gonna do this kind of SMD style. Technically, all the pads and stuff are pretty thick, but you see how these edges are like, they're technically called castellated, but they're like scallops, right? And then you see how we have both through hole, little holes here, as well as the pads themselves. What you can do is get your Pico, get your headers. These, I think, are the exact same number, and poke them through so that they go through both the board and the Pico. Yeah, there we go. So that'll keep it straight. We're only gonna do this just for a second so we can tack on. Typically, when you're soldering anything with, you know, dual lines like this, you wanna solder one corner and then, you know, make sure everything's lined up, of course, and then do the opposing corner. That way, you can readjust, you know, like, oh, I'll take the little headers off and I realize, oh, it's a little off. I can like heat up that one side and kind of, you know, move it a little around or whatever until it's perfectly right. Trust me, that didn't make sense, I'm sorry, but that's how you do it. Okay, get that side down. By the way, sorry if these camera angles aren't perfect. This is a first time over here, so it's gonna be a little messy. That's not very good, 1 second. Okay. I just don't wanna overdo it so it doesn't actually connect to these guys. So I can take them out, and now it's theoretically perfectly positioned. And there's definitely a theory there. So I'm gonna go ahead, since I think that looks good, go ahead and throw some flex down. This is the gooey liquid flex. They make better flexes than this. This is just what I got, what I'm gonna use. And put all around, everywhere I'm gonna solder, just a little dab, a little squirt here and there. And then let's go to town. I might speed this up because it's gonna be boring otherwise. One thing I like doing is I like just getting it on the castellated pads, edges, you know, so you can still use the through hole. Like if you ever wanted to add a header or, you know, just wire straight to the Pico, you can still do that, and that's kind of nice. Also, you see, sometimes I like doing this little maneuver here on these castellated pads in order to get proper contact on both edges. I am not doing a great job here. That's fine, it's not perfect. I made some of these a little too fat. The debug pins, I recommend doing just for brevity. But you do not need to do them if you do not want to. There are no debug headers on this board, unfortunately. I wish I added them, but, you know, live and you learn. But, you know, just keep it all tacked down properly. Cool. So that is our Pico in there. So we have a bunch of capacitors here. If I got them all taped up, you just rip them off, right? There should be 4 of them. Voila. And like I said, if you lose one or something, these aren't super necessary. Like I have both the 5 volt and 3 volt lines being decoupled here. Yeah, just pop them right through. It's okay if there's a little paper because we're gonna snip them down anyway. And then, you know, if you can hold it in place and take the legs and just put them at a little bit of an angle. I'll show you that in a little bit, how that works. Oh. And that'll just keep it a little snug. And then we have one for the bus transceiver chip. Yeah, so those are the power rail decouplers. Oh my god, I can't talk. There we go. And here is the bus transceiver decoupler. And then this is the one for the EEPROM chip. And it needs a little decoupling too. It's like a nice warm hug. Okay, let's move this guy over. Okay, then you'll kind of see what I've done here, though, you know, it helps to keep them in, but we're gonna do a little bit extra once we've done that. Let's get our soldering iron in here. I'm not gonna use any flux. I don't think it's necessary. Plus most solder has flux built into it, just a little bit. So it's not that important, but yeah, just make sure that's in there. Now what I like to do, I like to heat up one end, take my finger on the other side, and just push it until it's snug. Perfect, that feels pretty good. And then go ahead, once you're happy with that, do the other leg a little bit. And then you should have good solder joints there. You don't need too much solder, just enough to fill in the gaps. Pushing this one up, there you go. In fact, I'm just gonna speed run it and just do one leg on each one of them while pushing it up, making it thin, slim. And we're done. And then we just gotta come back with our little snippers. Try to get close, you know, don't kill yourself over it. I recommend these little guys. I have like a stash over here. I keep just a stash of them. Because you can use them for other things, bridging little gaps and stuff, especially when you're like proto boarding stuff or perf board work. They're nice to have. Or maybe you're just a hoarder like me. That's fine too. Whoever is interested in this and wants to build one, let me know in the comments, you know, where you're from. You know, if you do it like on your own, like you don't have to buy this board, right? You can just breadboard this easy. In fact, you don't even need all these components to breadboard it. But yeah, if you're interested, just, you know, say hi. I mean, if you want to buy one from the store, sweet. But if you don't, no problem. I ain't upset. But, you know, it's just cool to see people excited about things. You know, and that's one thing. I love doing these projects and like getting things in people's hands, because it's one thing to be like, to use other people's stuff, but when you provide something for other people, that's just exciting, you know? Ruffles my jimmies. Okay, now these resistors, these are technically only necessary if you are running the original firmware. These help pull up some extra lines that the original firmware doesn't use, to keep it from accidentally doing weird stuff with the board. So pretty much these just enable you to use the original firmware. They're technically not necessary. Like I said, if you know what you're doing, you can wire up the entire thing using only the bus transceiver, the Pico, and heck, if you're breadboarding it, you don't even need the ZIF connector, you know? Now, I think it's nice to have it all together and functional, but, you know, whatever. So I'm doing the same thing with the capacitors, where you kind of work the legs so that they don't fall out when you flip the board over. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing. First turn on our fume extractor. Don't want to get cancer. Now I'm gonna clean these boards, especially because, you know, this is gonna be shipped out. I'm gonna clean them with a ultrasonic cleaner, so all that flux and stuff will go away, even though that's kind of gnarly, but that's fine. Okay, next part. We're getting into the fun bits here. Okay, so we've done all of our low profile stuff, all of our passives. Can you all see that? Okay, we've done our Pico. Now to the fun bit, which is this guy, the bus transceiver. So you could socket this, but I feel like with the socket, it probably won't fit in the case. So instead, what I'm gonna do is put it straight in. Now you'll notice the legs don't technically fit that well. What you can do, because the reason why is they're flared out a little bit on the IC. You can take it just like on a hard surface and just bend each side in just a little bit. Try to get them straight so that it'll go straight in. Or I have a fun little tool. Voila! This is just some kind of like IC straightener thing I found on Thingiverse. It doesn't work that well. I must have messed something up, but it works good enough. You just slot that guy in there, hold it straight, pump it. Oh! And then it should do the trick. Yeah, I find sometimes like one edge is like a little more bent than the other, but it should fit in. Yeah, look at that. Cool. Now this one is a little tougher. Sometimes you can use like a little bit of tape on it or something to keep it down. But, you know, I like to play it rough. I like to put a little bit of solder on. And then I flip it over and then just tack down a single leg while I'm touching it, right? Just enough to keep it from falling. Okay, so I got it. I'm gonna turn the fume extractor on. And now I can just solder each guy. And I'm gonna push, I'm doing the corners, right? So I'm gonna push it up to make sure that it's happy. in a nice spot, and I think it is. And let's do, oh my God. Okay, I did it right. Make sure you have in the correct orientation. Everything should be facing up on this board, but you see the little lip there, and there should be a little lip on the silk screen of the PCB. Yeah, make sure that's correct. Don't just act like it's correct like me. Okay. Voila, beautiful. Actually, that looks really good. Yeah, it was super easy to solder. Cool, so that's ready to go. And now for the last part, and it's the ZIF socket. Now, oh, there you go, ZIF socket. So this guy, there's like a little circle here. That's where the little arm goes. You just put that sucker in there. It's kind of hard to line this one up, actually. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same thing where I tack on a little bit of solder. And then I'm gonna hold it, flip it around. Come on, get on there. Okay, that should be just enough. And then do the other corner. And then, you know, press it in, make sure it's tight. You want everything to be pretty tight to the board, or possible. And I think that's good. And then let's just keep going down the line. I got a little bridge. So it looks like we need to put our solder sucker to action. There you go. Beautiful. And there we go. Our board's all soldered up, and you can technically use it like this, or you can put a case on it. So I got a case here, and this is the one the customer ordered, right? Now, normally your case is gonna come kind of pre-assembled to a degree. But in this case, or like if you print it out yourself, I can turn that off. If you print it out yourself, you may want to do this. So probably don't need to. You can probably glue it if you really want to, but I've been interested in using these little heat set inserts, right? These are M2, which are teeny tiny. I kind of recommend, or in the future, I'm going to move up to M3 or something, but this is what I got for now. And they're just going to go into these little posts here. Using a little heat set adapter. So my iron is currently cooling down, but I'm gonna swap it out to use one of these guys, which what you do is you put the heat, the insert on it. It little fits on that little dongle there. And then you're gonna wanna put it onto the post in the center, go straight up and down. And honestly, I wouldn't even press it because the heat itself will bring it down into the post. And there's little ridges on the side, and the plastic will wrap around that and keep it fit in there with, I guess, the texture, I guess. I don't know. You'll see it in just a second here. Now, your soldering iron, I pretty much would do the lowest power because it does not need to be that hot. You know, PLA, or at least a 3D printer, prints at about 210 degrees Celsius. And I think the lowest setting on my soldering iron is 200 degrees Celsius. That's plenty. And yeah, you'll see it works fine. I don't even think it needs to be 210 because that's like fully liquefied. It should still be hot enough right now. So yeah, I'm gonna put it on the center there, hold it up and down, and then just kind of wait. I mean, you wanna put a little bit of pressure. Maybe it's not hot enough. You know what? I don't think it's hot enough. Oh, you know what? It's because I just put on the tip and it hasn't heated up the tip yet. Let's give it a second. Okay, maybe that's not enough. I don't know, I didn't wait that long. Let's try it again. Okay, now it's going. Because when it goes, it goes. And it should sit just about at the edge. Okay, that looks good. Whew. In theory, you could just put them straight on, but I don't think I made the hole wide enough. So I do like an angle, and then I go in. Cool, that looks good enough. Not great, but good enough. And then your case should go on. These look okay. Sometimes I find little squirrelies get in the holes. We don't like squirrels here. Like them outside, but not here. Yeah, so I got a little bit in there, so you just want to make sure that's clean. Now that looks good. And then you need screws. So at the moment, I don't actually have the right length of screws. And I don't even know what it needs to be. I haven't done the math yet. But I have these really long ones, and I know I can cut them shorter. So I'm gonna take it, and it's like that. You can kind of eye it. Whew. Okay, these are all about the same. I'm gonna check to make sure that they can make contact. I probably should have done that the first time I did it. Oh yeah, that makes contact. That's real good. Lovely. Okay, so these guys are ready. So I would call this case officially prepared. Let's put that sucker in. So now we've got our PicoPROM, and we got our case for our PicoPROM, the top and the bottom. Oh, coming apart there. And we have our 4 screws. Now getting this thing in can be a little tricky. You want the arm up, and so you gotta get the USB-C through that little hole there, right? You kinda gotta go in at an angle, because it's a tight fit, and I want it to be a tight fit. And make sure that this fully goes through there, and that the USB-C is in. Don't press too hard, but you may have to press a little bit. Because there you go. So I kind of had to squeeze it around and until it finally fits. Now I've actually got to clean this board first, but I'm just showing this off for now. So you got that in there. You put the bottom on. You know, I'm gonna close this so it can lay flat. You'll notice that little cutout allows the arm to sit right in the right spot. Okay, so we lay this guy flat. We take our screwdriver or hex screwdriver, whatever. There may, I mean, this will be prepared if you order the case, no issues. But you may have to go through and clean them up in case they didn't come out quite right. And there's no orientation to the bottom. The bottom's just rectangular. You can just slide it straight in. Symmetrical, you know. Okay, let's start screwing that sucker in. Cool. Don't over tighten because the heatset inserts may come out if you do that, and it's just not necessary. Also, if you want to be real fancy, you can add little rubber feet or something to this guy, make it, you know, sit nice on a desk. I probably won't ship them like that, but something to think about. We are in like Flynn. Yeah, yeah, the seal's, it's close. It's pretty close. This is not an art project. But look at that. It's ready to go. Awesome. Like that, your PicoPROM should be ready to go. All you'll need to do is plug in the USB-C into your computer. If it hasn't been written to before, it should go straight to boot mode, in which it comes up as RPI-RP2. And you just drag the UF2 file for the PicoPROM. It should be found on the GitHub. Whether you decide to use my version, which I recommend obviously, especially if you have this guy, or if you try to use the original one, the George Foot, either one will work. But if it has been written to, and let's say you want to upgrade your firmware, there's 2 holes. One hole is the status LED hole, and the other one is just the boot selector hole. You want to take something, I got tweezers here. You can use a toothpick, something like that. And you want to take it, put it through that second hole, and then press down on it, and then plug it into USB. And then let go, and that'll activate the bootloader mode. And then it'll show up as that drive. You can just drag it in, and that way you will update the software. Not the most elegant, but I figured it'd work well enough. If you have any other questions, let me know. I might add a written component to this guide that just walks through the steps, maybe shows photos or something like that. Y'all have a great one. Good night for me, I guess. And I hope you enjoy your PicoPROMs. And I gotta do it because, you know, it's the YouTuber thing. Like and subscribe or whatever. I mean, obviously, I'm not pushing this channel that hard. It's just for my side projects, you know, hobby stuff. But I don't expect any, like, expositions in the near future. But do expect cool new projects. Anyway, don't stop making. Have a nice day. Goodbye.